What's up, guys? So today I'm going to be showing you how to take the turbos off. That'll include taking the shields off. I will also be taking the transmission off. Taking the transmission off makes it a little bit easier taking these turbos off. You don't have to take the transmission off, but since it has to come off anyways, and usually when I do turbos, you're doing the clutch at the same time, so I usually take the transmission off. I'm going to be working on the passenger side first. I've already removed the turbo inlet. When we were doing the motor mounts video, I removed that. So that part won't be in here, but it's simple. It's a few 13mm bolts and all that comes right out. But first we need to remove this heat shield, so we'll have to take the EGT sensor off. This is a 17mm. We will also have to take the front O2 sensor off. This is a 22mm. This clamp down here, which is already loose, is an 8mm. And if you have the OEM bolts on here, these are 5mm hexes. They're supposed to be two, but one's missing. Start with the EGT sensor. 2 sensor. Now if you can't get in here, like I'm having a hard time, we'll go ahead and loosen this heat shield up, and that'll give us enough wiggle room to take this out. So now I have all this wiggle room, which should allow me access to this O2 sensor. Okay, with the heat shield off, let's go ahead and take the downpipe off. We will need to take this secondary O2 sensor off as well, which is completely loose. These O2 sensors could be in there pretty tight, where you'll have a hard time getting it out. A little bit of heat always helps. If you have a propane torch or a acetylene torch, you know, if you're having a hard time getting them out, get them really hot with that torch, and you shouldn't have any issues getting them out then. And this is not how it's supposed to be zip tied. You don't zip tie it to the transmission. There's actually a little clip that goes here that's not missing. There's something else that I've noticed is missing. The heat shield's missing here. I have no idea why. Also, to get these downpipes off, there's a 13mm bolt here with a spring on it. You need to take that off as well. We'll take that off, and then you have these 4 17mm nuts, and those come off as well. Again, if these are hard to get off, you could either heat them up or try to put some brake loose fluid on it. That may help it out as well. Let's tackle these 4 17mm bolts. First downpipe's off. Go ahead and tackle the other side. Alright, so we're going to do the driver's side now. So let's go ahead and loosen this. Heat shield's off. Let's go ahead and take care of the secondary O2 sensor, which is under here. You can't see it in this picture, but I'll get it off for you. Again, if you don't know where they go, you can go ahead and label them as well. was not installed correctly. This piece actually goes like that, and then this goes in between the downpipe. Spring, I don't know if you can see that, hopefully you can. Just like that. That's how it's supposed to go. Go ahead and take the downpipe off now. How this has also been off before. This is the wrong bolt or the wrong nut compared to the other ones. This is, and it's the wrong size. 14 it is. Driver's side downpipe is off. Next we will tackle the transmission. If you're taking off the transmission, the first thing you need to take off is actually these sensors, or you just need to take off the wiring to them. These heat shields, if you are missing these, I will put up in the part number up for you guys right now. I use these things everywhere on these cars. There's one here. We're missing the one that's supposed to go on this sensor. I use them on this side, driver's side for these the wiring loom for the O2 sensors, and I usually use it on the passenger side as well. This one doesn't have it. Remember to take off the crank position sensor. It's a magnetic pickup sensor, 10 millimeter. Oh wow, there's even a nut down here. Always find stuff. Alright, now that's out of the way. There's a bunch of 16 millimeter bolts. What I normally do is I label them. There, in the manual, there's a schematic that shows exactly where each one of these go, as they are different sizes. And looking at this, we're missing a bolt. There's actually supposed to be a 16 millimeter here. So maybe at one time this had a clutch job done or something, but it's missing a bolt. That's I'll let the client know that as well. Hopefully I'll have one on hand I could replace it with. But normally these are all different lengths, and the manual will actually show you where they go. Since this has been a part and I know stuff's missing, I'm gonna have to actually end up measuring all these and putting them in the correct spot, because I have a feeling that these aren't in the right order. So let's get started on removing these. Also underneath, there's two 8 millimeter hex bolts that need to come out as well. And there's two. It looks like there's supposed to be three, but in actuality, there's only two on this transmission for some reason. All right, guys, so here are those two 18 millimeter bolts. We'll go ahead and take those off. Also on this side, there's a 16 millimeter nut. This needs to come off, and it'll have a funky half moon on the other side, which hopefully if you hold your finger or place your finger on that other end, you should be able to just take this off with no issues. And since I'm already under here, I'm going to go ahead and take this 16 millimeter bolt off. Here's that funky piece. There you go. And I just go ahead and put these together. Even though I'm thinking these bolts are in the wrong location, I'm going to show you how I label them. Again, we are missing one here. So down here, I would use a 1. You can use Roman numerals, and then mark it on the trans as well. Next one, I would do 2. You can use a Sharpie on this if you want. Do it with dots. This one's missing, so I'll just do 4 dots here. Here's 5. You also have the starter bolt right here. So this is 6. Even farther down than this number 6, there is another one, bolt number 7. That's actually a super long bolt with a nut on the end of it, and that goes through the starter. These 2 bolts actually go through the starter. This one doesn't have a nut on it, number 6. It actually just a bolt. I'm going to go ahead and start with the starter bolt. That's what it looks like. These 16mm bolts, now they're put on from anywhere from 60 to 65 newton meters of torque, so you might need a breaker bar to get them off. When we reassemble this transmission back to the block, make sure you always torque it down. The books end generally between 60 and 65 newton meters. Those 8mm hex bolts are 45 newton meters. All right, so just remember that. That was very, very loose. That was loose as well. Since I take off a lot of transmissions on these B5 S4s, I made myself a little cheater, or their holder pins. They're kind of like the ones you use for the wheels. You put it in the wheel and it holds the wheel so you can bolt it down. I made these. I just cut the tops off of them. And what I'll do is I'll just put a few in here, and that'll hold the transmission in. It helps guide it when I install the transmission, and it also helps guide it when I take the transmission off. It's already missing a piece here. I'll go ahead and... Now, you don't have to screw them all the way in either. Alright guys, so what I did is I lifted the motor off the wood blocks, and then I also put a jack underneath the transmission, and as soon as I did that, the whole thing loosened up, the whole tranny came off the block, so it should come off fairly easy. This one will be nice. Saddle it like a horse. I go ahead and hold these mounts. Transmission's out. There's a plate right here. This will come out. And you go ahead and take these pins out for it. Now with the transmission out, it'll be a lot easier to get to the bolts on the turbos and stuff like that. What we need to do is take off this banjo bolt, this 13mm, and we need to take off this wastegate vacuum line. They're pretty dirty, so let's clean it up a little bit. The key is not to ruin this wastegate line. Even better, it just pulls right off. And then when everything, I have room in here, I will take that clamp off. These do have crush washers on them, so make sure you take those off when you reinstall all this stuff. We've done everything on the face of the turbo. Alright guys, so I'm going to go ahead and start with this 19mm banjo bolt. This has coolant in it, so make sure you have a pan underneath. Alright, We also have the oil line here, so let's go ahead and loosen that. 17 millimeter. Now we need to work on the other side of the turbo. This 19 millimeter needs to come off, coolant line as well. I made a special wrench for it. As you can see, it's really funky, but it fits in there really well. Now that this is loose, back here there's a 10 millimeter bolt. This needs to come out for the oil pressure line. There are different ways of taking turbos off. You could always leave the lines on the turbos and just take them off back up in here at the other connection point. So there's different ways of doing it. It's up to you how you want to do it. I've done it both ways. It just depends on your plans afterwards with what you're going to do with the turbos. So the oil line should be free now, which it is. Alright, so the next line we got to take off is the oil return. There are two little hex bolts underneath. There's a bolt here and a bolt here, hex bolts that need to come out, and it's a 5 millimeter ball joint, or a ball hex, so it makes it easier getting in there. These three 8 millimeter hex bolts are sometimes a really pain in the butt to get off. I use a few different tools to get these off. Now, if they're being a pain, heating them up again helps. Sometimes that doesn't even help, and I ended up having to weld the hex tool to the bolt to get it out. I've had to resort to that. And also, don't use the ball one. It may seem like it fits in there nice, but you'll just break it off, especially if these are really hard to get off. Having a friend sometimes helps too, holding the motor or pressing down on this with a towel to keep it from lifting up as you're turning it. This is the other tool I also use to get in the tight spaces where this will not fit. On the other side, the hard coolant pipe gets in the way, so I have to make a little jerry rig and then this goes on it, and then I could put my cheater bar on in that, and that helps. Cheater bar. One, two. These ones came off fairly easy, which is nice for a change. I'll go ahead and take off these 7 millimeter squiggle clamps. Go through and check everything, make sure everything's loose and off correctly. Alright guys, turbo's off. This one's a little different. We need to remove the turbo inlet pipe. We're missing a few bolts, or they're already loose, because there was another line here. When I pulled the motor, I had to take that line off to take the AC compressor out. And they're 13 millimeter. It's a little different than the passenger side. The 13mm banjo is way back there, but the wastegate's right in front. Pull the heat shield out of the way a little bit, or the sleeve. All right, so that's done. I'm going to go ahead and take these two clamps off, or loosen them. Let's go ahead and take this 19mm banjo bolt loose. Remember, this is coolant, so it will leak. Now you will not be able to get this bolt all the way out until the turbo's loose. Right. Go ahead and take this coolant line, or loosen it. Maybe this one will leak some coolant. There. Now for the oil return line, I always kind of do it towards the end. That way I don't accidentally get any coolant down into the oil pan. And then later on I put a cap on it, so nothing gets in it, or nothing can get into the oil pan, just in case. Just remember too that these all have crush washers that you need to take off. Go ahead and do the oil line, oil feed. All right. Next, I need to take this 10mm bolt off that holds this coolant line. Alright, so there's an EGT sensor here. You guys could take it off or you don't have to. It's totally up to you. I'm going to go ahead and just leave it on. I'm going to go ahead and do the oil return line now. You go ahead and put a cap on it so nothing could get into the pan, oil pan. Alright. So we are at that point where I need to break these three 8mm hexes bolts off. Now, see if you look here, this coolant pipe, it's in the way of this bolt. Actually, these two are, so I have to use my other cheater tool to get in there. I'm going to go ahead and start with the hardest one to get to, which is this one back here. There's just no way to get another tool in there, so this is what I've come up with. Now, what it's been doing eventually, this wrench is bending pretty crazy, so eventually I'll have to get another one. But that trick seems to work well on that bolt. Down. Now all of these came out pretty easy. Sometimes these could be a real pain in the butt to get out. There's that banjo bolt. Driver's side turbo is out. Alright guys, so one thing I noticed when I just took a look at this really quick, the last person that installed this clutch did it kind of half-ass. Those are not the correct bolts that go in there. You need to, when you do these things, make sure you buy the correct parts to put in. Look, they use some Allens and they use some hex bolts. Come on, guys. You can do better than this. Alright guys, so I decided I'm going to show you how to take off the pressure plate and clutch and all that as well. As you can see, this has the sack on it, which is the self-adjusting clutch mechanism. And this one looks almost maxed out. Not quite, but it's getting there. Again, the guy used the wrong bolts. I don't know if they lost these. There are these 6mm hex bolts are only one-time use, so generally you want to replace them. It doesn't cost that much money to do this, so make sure when you do it right, guys. Don't get cheap. It's only a few extra bucks. And of course, these are totally wrong, and I think they're 12mm. That they are. Since I have air tools, this shouldn't be too much of an issue getting off without the whole thing spinning. If that happens to you, you could always put the crank lock pin in. That usually helps putting the flywheel and stuff on. Some people don't like it because they say you could break the pin. Out of all the years of doing this, I've never broken a crank lock pin. As long as it's in correctly, you should be fine. Like I said, I've never broken one, and I've done tons of these things. So they also make a tool that locks onto the flywheel, and it'll lock that in place too. You could do it that way if you're not comfortable using a crank lock pin. Nope, that ain't coming out. Alright, let's try a different tool. Okay guys, so I have these nut removal tools. Let's see if this will work. Okay guys, so that did the trick. Well, bam, got it out. This bolt's, again, these are only one-time use bolts, so trash them when you're done. There you guys got to see some of the issues I run into, and you know, you just have to problem solve and work towards figuring out how to get those bolts out. It's happened to me before. It's not the first time. Usually when a bolt strips, I have a certain direction I go. And I start with a few things, you know, like if this will fit drastically at the end. If this didn't work, I would have ended up welding this piece to the bolt to get it out. You do lose your tool, but you know, it's part of being a mechanic. So this plate disc, you know, all the wear marks are gone off of it. So this definitely needed to be replaced. It almost looks like someone took a tool to this to like there's heat marks, I see that, but there's other marks in here that I see that I don't like. But who cares? It's getting replaced, right? Now, same with this flywheel. I'll be taking the flywheel off and having this whole thing resurfaced. Being uneven and putting a new clutch on it, it's not a good idea to not have this resurfaced.